All right, well, David, thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Great to meet you.
Thank you.
The movie that you are starring in that is out, coming out in theaters is Captive.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of actors who, play the bad guy in a movie or a villain or a character like that, a lot of actors kind of talk about how they can't see them as a bad guy or a villain. They can't approach the role in that way.
Mm-hmm.
How was it for you playing Brian Nichols? How did you kind of approach that character?
Yeah, I think what a lot of those actors are alluding to, and it was certainly the case for me, is that you can't play a bad guy, so to speak, and deem them as such while you're playing them, because the truth of the matter is we as human beings, more often than not, don't think that we are bad or villainous while we're living out our lives. And Brian Nichols, even though what he did is undeniably, to my mind, heinous and reprehensible, he had gone into a headspace whereby those actions for him were justifiable. He's now serving what I would say is the requisite punishment for what he did in terms of multiple life sentences. But to play him, I couldn't judge him, and that was tough, I have to say. For a guy who killed 4 people in a morning, playing Brian Nichols was not the primary reason I wanted this film to exist. It was what happened to Ashley Smith through this event, and so yeah, that was something I really had to battle. Was getting into and staying in the headspace of Brian Nichols.
It's no surprise that a big part of the movie is also the book that comes up, The Purpose-Driven Life.
Right.
What is it about that book, the passages that are read, between the two characters? What is happening for Brian Nichols? Is that affecting him, and kind of what was your interpretation of how that was kind of being taken in by him?
Well, I had read the book before I even knew of the Ashley Smith Brian Nichols event. And what that book did for me was showed me, in a sense, that God's purpose is bigger than my purpose for my life. How God sees us is actually much bigger. And I'm a pretty ambitious guy in terms of what I hope for myself, what I want to do with my life. But it wasn't just about ambition. It was actually, the book is about purpose, and a purpose that transcends your own life. That's what true purpose is. And when I look at this story, when I look at Ashley Smith's life, that's what happened. Her purpose grew beyond what she could ever have imagined, having been on a very clear downward spiral, having reached rock bottom in a sense, having thought that she was going to die on that night. She gained a purpose that far transcended her own life. Brian Nichols, on that particular day, on paper, he was going to kill Ashley Smith. On paper, he was going to commit suicide by cop. There were going to be more deaths that day. And, in her reading that book to him and showing him a degree of humanity, his trajectory changed. The nature of his purpose changed on that day as well. So that to me is how the book intersects with this event.
Well, I wanted to also ask you too about, you're coming off of an incredible movie, an incredible performance in that movie as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Just absolutely unbelievable performance. Many believe that was one of the biggest snubs when it came to Oscar time and the Academy Awards. I wanted to ask you about that, just in terms of your take on that sort of recognition. When people are talking all that hype, and is it disappointing when something like that happens? What are your thoughts on kind of the whole recognition process when it comes to acting?
Well, I think there's a disconnect between the disappointment you may feel and what's actually happening. That's what I'm able to now see in retrospect. At the time, of course, a film that is being so well reviewed and people feel very vehemently it should get certain, level of recognition. And if that doesn't come, of course, you're only human. You feel disappointed. But the upshot of the sheer amount of conversation that generated is why we're sat here today. You know, Paramount Pictures distributed Selma, and I don't know that they would be the ones distributing Captive if Selma hadn't done the business it did, had the notoriety it has, and been talked about as much as it has.
Sure.
So, you know, at the end of the day, as an actor, what you want, whether it's from awards or just from audiences liking your work, is more opportunity to tell more stories and to keep doing what you love to do. And so Selma has afforded me that. All that conversation around awards or lack of awards has afforded me to do that, because, you know, I genuinely feel there are people out there rooting for me on the basis of that film, and, you know, some things they feel I should have got that I didn't. So that's all good for me.
The film Captive, again, too, you know, it's based on a true story, as we discussed. A lot of movies nowadays are based on a true story, but they take certain kind of liberties with the story. To your knowledge, like, pretty much, like, how close is this movie to the events that happened?
I know for a fact that it's incredibly close, because Ashley Smith was on set with us for a lot of the shoot. You know, she was my primary source of information as to, you know, what happened on that night, the way Brian was, the way he moved, the way he spoke, because I couldn't get to Brian. You know, he's serving multiple life sentences, and access to him is impossible. You know, there's a lot of footage because the court case was a drawn-out one, and I could watch a lot of that. But she was the primary source, and as you can imagine, an event like this is not one you forget quickly. It's seared onto her brain, and so therefore, you know, she was right there. Anything that felt inaccurate, anything that felt like we were Hollywoodizing, for want of a better phrase, what went on. Like I say, she was right there to guide us.
Why don't you tell the fine people of Detroit why they should go see Captive this weekend?
Well, to me, the film is really about the power of the second chance. I mean, Ashley Smith in particular was someone who had hit rock bottom. She, in fact, said to me that when Brian Nichols broke into her apartment that night, because she'd been watching the news in the day and saw that there was this guy running around Atlanta who'd killed 4 people, and then suddenly he's in her apartment. I mean, Duluth, Georgia is 45 minutes away from Atlanta, Georgia. There's no way you're thinking he's going to turn up in her apartment, and he does. And she thought in that moment that this was God's way of saying, you deserve death. You've run out of luck, because you've spent too much of your life making bad choices. And it was actually the point beyond which she gained a second chance. She gained her life back. She never touched meth again. And we all have things in our lives we regret doing. We all have moments where we hope for a second chance, redemption, forgiveness. And I think that this film shows that no matter what you've done, you can still be afforded that. So hopefully, in my mind, that's what people come away with.
Mommy,
Hey, baby girl.
I love you.
I love you too.
I'll send my prayers for you.
I hate this car. I lost everything. My husband's dead, and they said I was an unfit mother. Took away my little girl.
Have you heard of this book? Help me.
You're late, Ashley. Lady dropped this off for you.
When I heard I had a son, I had to break out.
Breaking story right now. Police looking for this man.
Murder suspect Brian Nichols.
I want eyes in the sky. All choppers up now. Let's flush Nichols out.
My name is Ashley Smith. I'm a mother.
I don't trust you, Ashley. Please scream again, and I will have to kill you.
I need to see my daughter.
You're not going anywhere.
God, please help me.
You call me out upon
What is that? What are you doing?
Just a book.
Read it to me.
me where my trust is.
You want to know why you were placed on this planet? You must begin with God. He expects you to make the most of what you have been given.
I haven't been given anything.
You have a son.
Christopher, it's your daddy. You're gonna hear some bad things about me. Whatever happens, I love you, little man.
The greatest tragedy is not death, but life without purpose.
Stand up! Could you forgive me?
I don't know, but maybe God can.